Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining me live here at our home studio. Had a little flooding issue, but that is not going to stop us from having an amazing show today. I'm so excited. We're going to talk about Cracker Barrel. And I just heard I just heard something in my ear I don't think I was supposed to hear. But anyway, we're going to talk about Cracker Barrel and the whole Cracker Barrel controversy, issue, agenda. It looks like we're winning that war. Cracker Barrel has folded. I'm going to connect it to feminism folding. I'm going to start the show, get us all worked up and fired up and ready to go. And then we'll bring Dave Shannon, who's in town here with me. We'll bring him into the conversation. T.J Moe, we'll bring him into the conversation. And Shemeka Michelle, will bring her into the controversy. If you haven't heard about the Cracker Barrel deal, which most of you have, I would imagine, they tried to rebrand. And I'm going to connect it to the sports world and the lessons we should learn from all of this. And we'll do that the first 45, 50 minutes of the show. And then we'll bring in our guy, Steve Kim. We'll talk about Shedeur Sanders and how he triumphantly won the third string quarterback role in Cleveland. And it's kind of interesting because Tony Grossi, a longtime Cleveland reporter, is speculating that Deshaun Watson may play this year. And so we'll have a discussion about, who's more likely to start more games this year, Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders. We'll also talk about Mike Tannenbaum thinking that the Washington Commanders will win the NFC and that the only threats to them are the Green Bay Packers and who was the other team? The Green Bay Packers. What was it? Oh, yeah, the Green Bay Packers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's dismissing the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions. They're not a threat at all. The Washington Commanders, the oldest team in the National Football League with an average age of 28, he has them pegged in the NFC. We'll get Steve's reaction to that. We'll talk about something I wanted to talk about yesterday. The ESPN released their top 100 players. Their top 5 was interesting. Steve and I will both reveal our top 5 NFL players going into this season. And then the other topic we didn't get to yesterday that I really want to get to is the Cincinnati Bengals. They have signed Trey Hendrickson, their best defensive player, arguably one of the top 2 or 3 defensive players in the National Football League. They're giving him $30 million this year. Where do the Bengals rank? There are 7 playoff spots in both conferences. Are the Cincinnati Bengals, where do they rank in that top 7? How likely are they to make the playoffs? How likely are they to be a Super Bowl contender? The AFC is stacked, so Steve and I will rank the top 7 AFC teams in terms of who we think will make the playoffs. We'll do that. And at the end of the show, I got to get my WNBA fix in, so we'll talk a bit about Caitlin Clark and whether we've been ripped off this year. As it relates to Caitlin Clark, it's looking more and more likely like she won't play at all this season. I think we'll have Maurice from Keep the Vision and our man Frank back on to debate some of these WNBA issues with me. And then I would think at 12:15 is when I speculate we'll do Harmony today. And myself, Dave Shannon, and Virgil Walker will have a discussion about Black identity. Is it even important? Is it even salvageable? Is it an impediment to a Christian worldview, a Christian identity? We'll do that on the Harmony channel at 12:15. So jam-packed, action-packed show. I want to begin by thanking Craftco and Flying Ace. Some bourbons chase trends. Flying Ace chases legacy. This is straight bourbon the way it was meant to be, bold, balanced, and unapologetically American. No gimmicks, no fluff, just real whiskey made for people who still believe in hard work, high standards, and doing things the right way. That's me and this audience. Whether you're winding down after a long day or raising a glass with good company, Flying Ace delivers every time It's not about hype. It's about heritage and getting back to what bourbon was always supposed to be. That sounds like your kind of pour. It's time to level up. Buy online at flyingacespirits.com. Use the promo code BLAZE for free shipping. Thank you, Flying Ace. Thank you, Craft Co., for making today's show possible. Flyingacespirits.com, promo code BLAZE. All right, let's get into today's show, and let me just kind of set the table for the discussion, and then we'll bring T.J., Shemeka, and Dave Shannon into the conversation. If you have not heard, an 8-woman marketing team concocted a rebrand of Cracker Barrel, the legendary breakfast spot, and it did not go over well. And it opened Cracker Barrel up for an investigation where people started looking into, like, what all they got going on here? Well, why are they rebranding Cracker Barrel? Cracker Barrel was fine. Why are we removing the old Southern white man from the corner of this and coming with some very sterile logo for Cracker Barrel? And the next thing you know, people started look at all these DEI policies they have. Look at all this LGBTQ stuff they had. And the next thing you know, Cracker Barrel, its stock is plummeting. People are starting to boycott it the way people boycotted Target. This was a disaster put on by this 8-woman marketing team. And I want to make the connection, and I'm going to make the connection in the argument, that diversity as this in-game goal, diversity as the ultimate destination, what it really is, it's a rebuke of competition. And buckle up, some of you will get mad at me. Maybe, my traditional audience will understand what I'm saying, but what happened at Cracker Barrel and what's happening in American culture and what's happening with this whole feminist movement, women don't want to compete with men. They're insecure. They know they're the weaker vessel. And so they've made diversity the ultimate goal rather than excellence. That's what this is all about. And so they look at everything. They look at the logo and the branding and everything from the past when it was a competition among men, and women were helpmeets for men and played just quite honestly, a secondary role as it relates to leadership and accomplishment and competition. They look at anything like that from the past as that's bad, that's evil, that must be eradicated, that must be erased. And so they get triggered. They see, why is an old white man the logo for Cracker Barrel? Let's remove him. And they're doing this throughout all of American society, eliminating male leadership because they have convinced everybody that diversity is the goal. And that anytime you see diversity, well, that diversity is excellence. Diversity is what we all should be striving for. And what we all should be striving for is excellence. We should all be striving for holiness. We should all be striving for the best that we can be and the best that America can be. And the feminist movement wants no parts of that because they don't want to compete against men. Let me go the extra layer. We keep it real on this show. When you hear minorities, black people, whomever, when you hear the LGBTQ doesn't want to compete against heterosexuals. They want a leg up. And so, hey, I take it up the rear. That makes me more valuable than those of you that are heterosexual. They don't want to compete. There's a segment, seemingly a large segment of the black population in America that does not want to compete. And so they want diversity to be the goal. They want things to look right, even if they don't run right. Again, that's why, hey, Brandon Johnson, we have a black mayor. Our city is crumbling. There's total chaos. Crime is everywhere, but he's black. And so that's good. They don't care whether Chicago runs properly. They just want it to look good on the outside. It is damaging and hurting all of us. I will make one other point here, and I'm going to personalize this, and I hope that I don't distract from the point that I'm making, and people get upset. Why is Whitlock talking about himself? But I have a real life example of what black and feminism combine, how it just seeks to destroy anything and everything in its wake. And so I'm going to tell a personal story here. Hold for 1 second. So years ago, and some of you remember, 2013, 2014, I'm hired at ESPN to launch a website intended to cover sports and cover cultural issues with black journalists and be an affinity site, basically, and I said this, and people, for some reason, Bill Simmons and his groupies, or people just out to destroy me. And I like Bill Simmons. I'm not saying he was out to destroy me, but his groupies and just use it. And I said, like, Bill Simmons at ESPN had this thing called Grantland, and ESPN was going, hey, we're going to do a black version of Grantland. Jason Whitlock, you're going to lead it. You're the best, they said probably best black sports journalist in America. I would just say the best, but, we won't argue the details. But so I come up with the name for this affinity site, and it's a brilliant name. We worked really hard. Me and a guy named Jesse Washington and a guy named Mike Wise, we chopped this up for months trying to figure out a name. A couple other people, John Hanson, or my team. But finally, I figured it out. I didn't get any, I got assist in terms of brainstorming, but I figured it out. I was like, how can I come up with a name that connects us to sports, that also honors and reverences black people? And so I come up with the name The Undefeated. And it's taken from a Maya Angelou quote. Maya Angelou, the great writer, poet, whatever. She's had this saying about, just because you've suffered defeats doesn't mean you've been defeated. It's a famous Maya Angelou quote. And it was the name was honoring her. We're undefeated. And it was honoring and it was referencing the Miami Dolphins and being undefeated in sports. It's a perfect name. No one denies that. Eventually, after they ran me out, after they went through the motions of a couple, 2 or 3 years of Kevin Merida running the site, eventually they handed the editor's job to a black woman. She does a rebrand. Her and her minions decide, hey, we got to rebrand this away from Jason Whitlock and what men did. And they called the thing, and they still call the thing, Anscape. They have a website on ESPN called Anscaped. Everyone thinks it's like, that's a typo. This is a landscaping company. But this is the stupidity of feminism. This is the anger of feminism. This is the anger of black feminism entitlement and the demonization of everything men do, particularly if that man isn't a leftist, particularly if they suspect, like the guy, the Cracker Barrel logo, hey man, that looks like a good old Southern boy that probably voted for Trump. He must be eliminated. Jason Whitlock, he doesn't hate Trump enough. He's not liberal enough. We must get away from anything he did. He's horrible. He's bad. And we must put a feminine stamp on this. And so they took something wonderful and beautiful and a gift, and they turned it into a landscaping company. And the site hasn't done anything of any relevance for the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And I'm sorry if that upsets people. That's not me being petty. That's not me trying to diminish the people there that are trying to do some level of work, but the place sucks. And everybody knows it. But everybody pretends like it doesn't suck and that nothing has gone on here, and these black women have led the landscape to greatness. They seek to destroy because they don't want to compete. And at some point, regardless of skin color, regardless of whatever victimhood status people have signed up for, the people that don't want to compete need to be pushed to the side and pushed out of the way so that those of us that want to compete, those of us that want to take risk, those of us that don't want to build everything, because what they did, what these women did that run Cracker Barrel, what they decided is like, hey, what can we do that is 1,000% inoffensive to everybody? And so they make it sterile and meaningless. There's no character to it. There's no defining characteristics to it. There's nothing. There's just some block letters. Because we got a victim class and people that are spend every moment of their lives looking to be offended. They're like, oh man, they see the Cracker Barrel logo and they see that looks like an old Southern white man. I could be offended by that. That reminds me of slavery. That reminds me of Jim Crow. These people, these are delusional. We're building a world for delusional, feminized nut jobs. Women are doing this because they spend every moment trying not to be offended and trying to be inclusive. And they've destroyed competition. And America was built on men competing against each other. That's what brought out the excellence. That's what brought out the greatness. And so you guys know, and some of you complain, and we'll talk about the WNBA at the back end of this show. But the reason I talk about it because there's so many great examples of this lack of competition and this changing of American culture. And I'm going to land the plane because I want to bring these other guys into the conversation. But last night I was looking at watching the Indiana Fever game. Caitlin Clark is still sidelined, but they debuted her new Nike logo. And all of her teammates wore her CC logo T-shirts. And they do this all the time in the WNBA. Just a week ago, they all wore T-shirts celebrating Kelsey Mitchell. And everybody thinks this is a great example of teamwork, and this is a great example of supporting each other. And it's not. Because in sports, the culture had been nothing is greater than the team. No individual is celebrated before and above the team. And that's what the WNBA does virtually on a nightly basis. Let's pick out an individual on the team. Let's pick out some individual and let's celebrate them and put them above the team. There's no submission to the greater good. There's no putting the team first. They're moving everything away from traditional values. And these women are so insecure that if there aren't T-shirts celebrating them, they develop anxiety and depression and all these other things. This is crazy. You can't build a world based on, hey, I got to go celebrate all these individuals, or they feel left out and they'll cry and feel anxiety and need some sort of pill to make them feel better. The people that don't want to compete need to get out of the competition business. You're not built for it. You don't want it. You're not man enough for it. And women, you won't accept who you are, a helpmeet for men who are designed to compete. I don't care who that offends. If you're black and don't want to compete, I have no respect for you. If you want a job, I'm black, give me a job so that you look diverse. If you're not demanding a job because, hey, look, I'm the best person for this job, I have no respect for you. I know that many days people sit there, Whitlock, man, you're just too hard on these women. I'm hard on men because we have allowed this. We think we owe women reparations and we don't. They've tricked us, made us simps and cucks. And they're destroying America. You could see it in Cracker Barrel. And I'm glad that people rallied up, voiced their displeasure, and made Cracker Barrel crack. They made feminism crack. And so when I tell you all, and I'm landing the plane, I'm gonna get to these other guys, I'm sorry. When I tell you all, as sports fans, we can make them crack. We're owed respect as sports fans. And if you're looking at this culture war and the people that are rallying together and saying, hey, enough is enough, you can make them fold just like Cracker Barrel just folded, like Bud Light had to fold, like Target had to fold. You can reject this whole notion that, hey, let's send 8 women to do a job one man, Don Draper, could do in the 1950s and 60s. I'm talking about Mad Men for those of you that didn't watch the show. But hey, let's send Peggy and 7 other women to do what Don Draper used to do by himself. We got to get back to that. All right, I've ranted enough. I want to bring these other guys in. I'm going to start with Dave Shannon just because Dave's, hadn't been on the show in a while. He flew into town to help me and Luke out. I'm going to be deferential here a little bit to Dave. Dave, am I too hard on women?
Oh, yes. Yes, you are, because somebody is raising these feminists. They didn't get here by themselves. And so I'm thinking to myself is behind every feminist is a father that didn't raise his daughter right. They didn't just pop up out of nowhere and start running things. And even if they got into their positions of authority and power, they got there through some guy who thought it would be a good idea. And so they got there through a cuck. So I look at this and I'm thinking to myself, like, if we want to get to the core of the problem, we're going to have to deal with the man on this issue. Because when God gave the earth to man in Genesis, he didn't give it the whole rule of it to a woman. He gave it to Adam to rule, and he gave a helpmeet, his wife Eve. And so when Eve bit of the fruit, it wasn't that all creation fell. It didn't fall until Adam bit of the fruit. And when Adam bit of the fruit, the whole thing fell apart. And so what we're seeing right now is the collapse of masculinity and man in leadership. And what's happening is, because men are not stepping up into their positions of authority to take charge, and they're happy letting women run things because they don't have to be responsible for it. And so what you get is things like what you see in Cracker Barrel. If we, and I don't think, and I've been watching this whole thing, I don't think it's a huge win for us right now either that we got them to go back, because how do we get this board in the first place? What are the guys that are in this company that thought it would be a great idea to give the whole board to women and the marketing team to women to run? And then what do we get out of this just because we go back to a logo? It's not a win for us. This is every institution that we have on earth comes out of the family. And we're seeing right now in these institutions that are collapsing a nerve ending that is coming out of the family, and we're trying to fix it right now. Like, okay, we can change your logo, but there's a core problem there. These things represent something else that's way more broken. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, so we got what? Cracker Barrel for another 10 years? There's a way worse problem going on here. And if we don't get ourselves as men back into the game to fix the problem, which I don't think we're going to fix it just by changing the logo or getting the establishment to move back a little bit. I think we're going to fix it by raising up people who aren't feminists and raising up men, raising up boys to be men that are going to be in a position that allow women to operate. Look, if a man was in place and he had women come in and help him, what should have happened in this is that everything should have gotten better. Because there's a man there who has a vision, who has a goal. He has somebody come in like a woman who is great at making things beautiful. And then they follow and they take that and they duplicate and they make more out of it. But the same thing happened, but it shows that we didn't have the man there because what we got was something that was meh, right? Like we didn't get anything better. We got everything worse, which tells you that the real problem is at the core with the man. And so I look at this, I'm like, if we don't get that right, we don't get, because the battle isn't over Cracker Barrel, the battle is over the core of America. Is America going to lose the things that made it what it was? And that's what everybody's talking about with Cracker Barrel. This is our heritage. This is our narrative. This is who we are as a people. And Cracker Barrel is just pointing to the fact that we've lost our identity. But institutions represent the things that make them up. Every institution comes out of the family. And so it's showing that the family has lost its identity. And so you get this thing that happens in the culture with Cracker Barrel.
TJ, Dave says that Cracker Barrel backpedaling is not a win. Agree, disagree?
Well, I mean, I think we got to take our small wins. That is a win. It is we want a tiny battle. The war is ongoing, and that may be what Dave's trying to say. I'm finally to the place where I'm just glad we're fighting the war, because most of my lifetime, I'm 34, we've just been taking bullets to the face and doing nothing about it. And so Bud Light was one of the first times we started fighting the war. This is another time we're starting to fight the war. And it's stock prices is really the only thing that did it. Their stock price dropped through the ground. And, people say it's not about money, but there is a money component to it, because if they go bankrupt, obviously they're not around. But there is more to it than the money. Have you ever heard Tucker Carlson talk about this? The infrastructure since World War II. He's got a pretty good narrative on this that I agree with. That, right after World War II, we supposedly won the war, but like they've taken the infrastructure since then. Everything's concrete and steel because it's cheap and that's it. And they've cheapened everything. Every church that pops up now looks like a 7-Eleven. Like there's nothing beautified in America anywhere. And it's actually degrading to your soul. It's degrading to your human spirit. And Tucker's narrative is like, hey, you build things to, for your fellow man, for whoever, to represent what you think about them. And this is the most bland, cheap, no thought way of doing anything. And this logo looks like, I know it was 8 women. It looks like a vegan committee up in Portland put this thing out. And now the inside of the restaurant looks like a hospital waiting room. I mean, that is the reality. It is degrading to us. And they're feminizing everything, right? And you can actually take it to the logo itself. The logo itself has an old man that would remind you of your grandpa. Forget that he's black or white or whatever. It's like, well, they don't want you to think about that. Your grandpa will remind you of actual old-time traditional American values and rugged individualism that actually built America. And they can't call my grandpa racist. My grandpa was one of the best people I ever knew. Everybody thinks that. So they have to get rid of these people, get out of the site so that they can sell their narrative. And so as it relates to Cracker Barrel, feminizing everything, it just softens it, right? It makes it easier to take over. Women are very compliant. And the idea is, as we talked about in the meeting this morning, Jason, that it allows for the globalist agenda to have no pushback because everything's just soft.
Certainly that's my contention that feminists and the women, they've set up diversity as the goal because they don't want to compete against men.
I actually like that point of view, Jason, and I think you're actually right. We don't want to compete, not because we don't have the mind to, we can't. Because we like to live in delusion and think that we can stand toe-to-toe with men, but we really can't. When we look around, just in my own room where I'm sitting right now, everything here that I have was made by a man. The chair that I'm sitting in was made by a man. The computer that I'm coming to you all from or through was made by a man. We cannot compete with men, but we like to live in this delusion as if we can. And so there's this idea that if we just get rid of all representation of men, the world would be a much nicer, softer place. And that's just not the truth. If we got rid of men, the world as we know it would crumble. And so I just want to say to the people that push back with Cracker Barrel, way to go, Crackers. I'm I'm proud of you because I appreciate you all pushing back. Because when I think about Cracker Barrel, first of all, I'm not ignorant, and I know that it wasn't about race. I do know the definition of Cracker Barrel is simple and unsophisticated, plain. And when I think about Cracker Barrel, I didn't go there because I thought the food was so great. I liked going there because it just gave me a sense of old-fashionedness. The rocking chairs on the porch. When I wanted to teach my girls how to play Jack Rocks, this was before our go-to was just Amazon right off the bat. I went to Cracker Barrel to find Jack Rocks to teach my children how to play. So for me, it just represented the old times when things were easier, when things were much calmer. And so as soon as I saw they removed the man from the logo, immediately my antennas went up that they were just trying to get rid of men and what they feel men represents. And this particular man, this old, probably white man who possibly would be a Trump supporter, my antennas went up, and it's just clear that women are running things and they are completely delusional, not really understanding how important men are and how we need men on a daily basis. And yes, they can't compete. They know they can't, but they don't care. They just like to live in delusion.
Dave, I'm going to circle back to you on the point of the reason why I do think this is a win is because it's provoking conversations like this, and it's taking the scales off people's eyes so that they can actually identify the problem. And so particularly for black men, but just men in general, I don't think they understood fully the consequences of matriarchy and the consequences of, hey, you know what? I know this woman is potentially going to take a paternity leave. I know this woman once a month until about age 45, 44, or whenever, is going to have a menstrual cycle that's going to change her hormone and mood. I know that this woman potentially holds grudges and would go on a podcast and say, I'm a vengeful person with a long memory, and I'm going to get revenge on people like Joy Taylor. So we've been elevating this demographic of people into leadership positions with the false belief this is going to make things better. Once we get women in these leadership positions in endeavors that they can't compete against the best men, it's going to make things better. And it gives us an opportunity to say, hey, guys, this is a mistake. We're putting our children in harm's way. We're putting women in harm's way. We're creating a society that's chaotic and doesn't work. And so that is why I see this as a win, because everybody's having this conversation. And even if they don't like it, they're having to consider the things that I'm saying and we're saying.
Yeah, I think TJ summed up kind of my position a little bit better than I did, which is like, yeah, it's a win in some sense in a battle. But I keep thinking about just thinking about my house. My daughter's never going to have to be in that situation because she's going to submit herself to her husband, and we wouldn't have somebody running Cracker Barrel who doesn't want to compete with men. We would have the right people. And if she is running somewhere at Cracker Barrel, she's going to run with the leadership's vision for the whole platform. We are producing, Jason, you're right. People, this has started a conversation, but it's not starting the right one. What we see in Cracker Barrel is a reflection of ourselves. It is the pus that's coming out of our own culture of what we created. And Cracker Barrel is showing us what we've put out into society. culture isn't a thing. You can't grab at culture and control it. You can manipulate it in some ways, but it has to come out of something. It has to come out of a cultus. And so when I see Cracker Barrel, I'm saying, man, look at the houses of America. Look at the homes of America. Look at the people that we're putting out into society. The home is the incubator for what we see in society. And so when we look at Cracker Barrel, I'm a little bit torn by this because I like the fact that we are able as an entity, as a group of people to say, yeah, we don't want to attend Cracker Barrel if you guys are going to change the logo. I prefer to say, I don't want to attend Cracker Barrel because your food sucks and I don't like the environment, right? Like, and then let the free market decide in one sense or another, if Cracker Barrel lives or die. I want all of the pus that is in these institutions to come out so that the old ones that are not following along with where we want to go in culture society can fall off and die, and we can build something new from the ground up again. Because what we're doing in one way or another, Jason, is masking this. And so they say, well, we don't go that way, but their heart and intentions of their institutions haven't changed. The people haven't changed. And so we just have this thing that's moving along without a real heart.
Dave, Jason, can I jump in on it? Dave, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Where I think Jason's right, though, is that it's for people to wake up. I don't think most people chose to be where they are. And that sounds stupid as somebody that believes generally in personal agency. But there is a narrative that the globalists and that the elites have that they push and pound into you over and over and over. And it's an insidious thing that's been happening again since about World War II. We're going on 80 years of this at least, certainly since the 1960s and the Civil Rights Act. There's a narrative that's pounded into people, and they are totally unaware of it. And so they go along and their family is remade. Again, it is their own fault for men not being in charge of their own families and seeing. But most people go to work every day. They come home. They don't know what their kids are consuming. They don't, again, all problems in the home. But it's something that's been happening to them, not something they're intentionally doing. And that's where I think Jason's right here is that, hey, just wake up. We can actually fight against this. You can take charge of your own family. You haven't intentionally put a feminist in charge of everything. Most Americans, if they were explained what feminism really is, aren't really feminists. They're not man-hating lunatics, right? But we've come to a place where the life just happens to us. And so while I agree with you, I think there's a little more to it in that all you got to do is wake up and see it. Because once you do see it, it's very easy to fight against.
Well, take someone like myself that in 2013-14, I'm in charge of running the undefeated. And even though I am who I am, I'm going with the flow of culture of like, yeah, you know what? Your number 2 person at the undefeated, it should be a woman. That would be the fair thing to do, for someone to challenge you and make sure you're that perspective. And it was one of the dumbest things that I did. I prioritized having a number 2 person that was a woman, and it did not go well. And I didn't fully understand the consequences of feminism. And again, this is this sports point, TJ, I would like for you to piggyback off of it. When you really understand feminism, it is the mortal enemy of competition. Mm-hmm. And because they know they can't compete, they don't want to compete, they want the job based off of, hey, we checked a box and you needed to have a woman in the room. And so I look at how the entire culture of America over the course of the last 60, 70, 80, we just keep moving further and further away from competition and pursuing excellence. And we've prioritized, quotas and checking boxes and making sure it looks, the optics. We in a constant conversation about optics rather than is Cracker Barrel producing the best breakfast possible? Is this football or basketball team performing at its highest level rather than, how many black head coaches do we have? How many black quarterbacks do we have? It's how many excellent quarterbacks do we have? And so that's where I think we're winning is that people are, when I first started saying, I was not the first, but I was early in saying like, hey man, I'm not sure if this 19th Amendment thing and women voting is the right thing to do. I sounded like a lunatic then, but now more and more people are starting to sound like a lunatic as it relates to that, and so I consider it a win. And so, TJ, I'm just as a jock, you see the connection I'm making in terms of like feminism is why we've softened competition, and everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets a at bat. We never tell a kid, hey, you're just not good enough. Maybe you should be the team manager. Anyway, your response to that, TJ.
That's all great. And so I'm about to make an argument again. I'm on the opposite side that I normally am on a couple of things. So just to be clear, I am a through and through 100% capitalist. Okay, so there's my disclaimer to get this out of the way. And even to Dave a second ago, I argued things generally on personal agency 100%. There is another side to at least consider. And so I agree with you 100% on the meritocracy. Okay. Women cannot compete. That's the reality. And so that's why the WNBA shouldn't exist. I'm sorry. I know I'm speaking to the number one WNBA fan in the history of the world. The WNBA should not exist. Caitlin Clark would have had not an opportunity to enter the WNBA because it would have been out of business 20 years ago. That is just the reality of the situation. Okay. So women can't compete in the marketplace against men. Secondly, and this is fine to say to the people I'm talking to, but would create waves elsewhere. Look, I think there's a lot of really capable black people, but if black people as a whole can't compete in the marketplace, can't be in the marketplace. That's just the reality. And so we can't make special accommodations for everybody or the entire society falls. That is problematic. Okay. And so, but what I will tell you is this, and why I think we're here. This is where I'm defending to some degree to the side that I'm not normally on. We're in late-term capitalism, okay? And I say late-term is because if you continue down this path, it fails and it falls, all right? And so meritocracy builds the greatest economy that's ever existed, and that's what we're sitting in right now. But eventually you get so prosperous, you start looking around and care way more about fairness than you do productivity. And then money is just endless because you can print it anyway, and who cares? And we're in charge of everything and whatever. And so you start saying, well, that's not fair. I feel bad for this person, and we should just give them jobs because they're black, or we should just hand them jobs because they're women. And you go there, and the part of there is a slight line here because most of us would agree with the anti-monopoly rules, right? Otherwise, Apple and Google and whoever would have been in throughout history, perhaps would have owned literally everything and pushed people out. It's like I don't want to live in a small town where Walmart pushes out all the little guys. I don't want that, but they do. They come in and they lower all their prices because they can take losses for 6 years, doesn't matter, till they push everybody else out. And then Walmart is the only store in town, and that's the only option that you have. I don't want to live in that world. And so there is some sort of line where it's like, I don't want to be a nation of workers. I want to be a nation of owners. I think everybody should try to own whatever they're doing all the time. And so that is what led to all this late stage capitalism where people are starting to feel guilty and they're like, well, the rich can't get too rich, and there's going to be the haves and the have-nots, and so we got to do something about it. It's not the right approach, but I see how we got here.
I certainly see how we got here, and your comments about Walmart and what the founders intended. My understanding, we should be a nation of shopkeepers, and they're in individual states, in individual counties, in individual towns. This is why I'm anti-Walmart, is because there should be, my next door neighbor, who I'm sure has done well or whatever, but should have some business that runs out of Nashville that provides for him and his family, and they live a good life. And instead, everybody wants to be international, and they want to be billionaires and global citizens and all of that. And that's how you end up losing the unique character that made America special. And again, Cracker Barrel is just a tiny sliver of that. This was a unique American restaurant that reminded you of a specific time in American history. Everybody loves nostalgia. And everybody loves that, oh man, this is what it was like when my grandmother would take us to breakfast. And because that's what I think of Cracker Barrel. I think of my grandmother, Augusta Combs. Granny is what we called her. But Shemeka, I'm going to, because I'm running a little tight on time, I'm going to give you basically the final thought. Dave, I'm going to let you get back in here. But Shemeka, I'm going to let you react to anything that's been said or pick up wherever you would like.
Just to TJ's point, I agree that they've begun to, like, of course, women can't compete with men. And I think that's why we have things like women being police officers, and now we see fat police officers. I don't even understand how you can be a fat police officer. Like, how are you actually going to protect someone? You can't run after a criminal, but we've just begun to lower standards all across the board. And when it comes to Black people, it would really irritate me every time I heard them say, oh, a Black person can't take a test, or a Black person can't meet this type of expectation. When you would take your dog into the pet trainer and expect your dog to learn how to roll over or to fetch or to sit, but now all of a sudden we want Black people to feel like they can't accomplish the basic things, and that really irritates me. And so I'm just feeling, as a woman right now, I'm so glad that Dave Shannon pointed out the story of the Garden of Eden, because it didn't matter that Eve took the fruit. I don't care if she sucked the seed. When God came and asked for an explanation, he went to the man. So now I'm looking at the men and saying, hey, yes, we have a problem here, but what are y'all going to do? And I feel really good that I don't have to carry that on my shoulders of trying to fix it. Of course, I'm going to do my part, which is why I'm a part of Fearless. But I do think that we have to get the men in place, because that is who God is asking for an explanation, and the accountability is coming from the man.
Dave, we're going to let Shemeka and TJ go. Dave, we got about 5 minutes here to chop up a point TJ made that was pretty provocative, and it's factual. Like, hey, Black men, if you can't compete and don't want to compete, miss me with all of it. I'm not going to shower you with sympathy, and this again, Dave, where I do think there's an opportunity here to have conversations and to explain to people that Black men can compete. You have to enter the competition, though, in order to compete. You can't compete with it from the outside. And so if you want to build children and a family unit that can compete in America, you better enter into the institution of marriage. You better take responsibility for your wife and kids and discipling and leading them, because that is what my parents shared with me about their childhood when there was more of a family structure. It's like, oh no, there's a family that I'm close with, the Bowles family. It's a family of geniuses, Black genius. Every kid, they were dentists and doctors and super high IQ. They came from a family structure. These are who my parents grew up with, super strong Black families that produced geniuses. And that's why I have so much respect for you, Dave, you and your wife, and what you guys are doing out in Moscow. You're entering your kids into the competition by having a strong family unit led by yourself, and that is the solution. If we're not going to enter into marriages, and again, I'm raising my hand. You guys listen to me on this show, say, I made a mistake. Don't do it. And if you're not going to enter the institution of marriage, don't have kids. But if you want to compete and produce Olympic level kids, not just athletic, but any Olympics they want to have, intellectual, you got to enter the competition by entering into this covenantal relationship with God, woman, and children. That's how you compete.
We have a two-part problem, and I don't want anybody to hear me making a false dichotomy between fighting the culture battles that we have and then dealing with the core of the culture battle at our homes. That's a two-part problem. We need a sword and a trowel. But don't forget, what keeps the thing safe is the trowel. We build up the walls that keep our nation safe through our families and our families building institutions from that. We currently have enemy at the gate, so we have to have a sword with us at the same time. And so this is where I agree. Like, yeah, there is some sort of victory that I'm happy for. It buys us more time. In the same way Trump, right? He doesn't solve the problem, but he buys us more time to be able to have some sort of protection around us. So we have to do both of those things. But the number one thing in trying to solve a problem is, first, don't make it worse. And that's number one important thing. And the things that make it worse are producing more feminists into the system that we're currently trying to solve by our cultural social media push. So the core of it is, don't make it worse at our homes while we fight those battles. We can do both ends, but don't think that we're fighting the battle and that's the win. The win is what you produce from your own home to the rest of the culture.
Dave, thank you for landing your plane early, and it will keep me on schedule. I appreciate it. We'll see Dave on the Harmony channel around 12:15. He and Virgil Walker will join me. We'll have a conversation somewhat similar to that, but just about this Black culture and Black identity. Can it survive? Can it coexist with a Christian identity? I don't think it can. We'll discuss that on the Harmony channel around 12:15. When we come back, Steve Kim and I will get into Shedeur Sanders. He's the third string quarterback. He won the job. And is he actually going to get more snaps this season than Deshaun Watson? We'll discuss that and more with Steve Kim. Next. Jerry Jones wants a relationship with Micah Parsons that will last a lifetime. He wants to remove the agent from the equation. He's trying, and if you watch this documentary, what he's trying to subtly say to Micah Parsons is like, look at the way I love Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin went to hell, and he had on gasoline underwear when he went there. And Michael Irvin asked me, Jerry, I'm in hell. They got me busted on these drug charges. They got this woman that I was banging, squealing on me, telling everything about I threatened to kill her, the drugs we use. Jerry, I need you to put on these gasoline underwear and go to hell with me and resurrect me and bring me back from hell. And Jerry Jones did that.
Yeah, 모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Listen that I'm back just to feed you raps when I see that you up here below So
All right, welcome back. Steve Kim joining me here on Fearless. Steve, let's start where we start a lot of sports conversations this football season with Shedeur Sanders. He's won the third string quarterback job, or I don't know, people are probably upset. Why isn't he number two? Dylan Gabriel is. But I find something else a bit more fascinating. Tony Grossi is speculating that Deshaun Watson might play this season. He might recover from his, I think it's an Achilles injury or whatever, and might play this season, which leads me to the question, if you had to guess, who would get more snaps this season, or starts, or just snap starts or whatever, Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders. But let's play Tony Grossi, longtime Cleveland media guy that's covered the Cleveland Browns for, it seems like forever, for 40 years. I don't know how long it's been, but let's play Tony Grossi talking about Deshaun Watson.
There is a path, and the path is this. If they don't add a fourth quarterback to the practice squad or have one in reserve, you know, and if a need arises for someone else to take over, you know what happens. The dominoes fall on this quarterback roster every year. And Watson continuing to recuperate and be in shape to be healthy and medically cleared. If the need arises, I now will say it's possible. I don't think that's the plan, but I think it's a fallback.
Steve, if you had to guess, who plays more this year, Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders?
For the sake of us and the fearless audience, I hope it's Shedeur. I don't need to see Deshaun. I know what he is. He's a spent bullet. In boxing, we call him a shot fighter. He's shot. There's nothing there, but there's a lot of money on the books there. But here's the other reality. Shedeur Sanders may not be ready to play right now a functional game of quarterback in the National Football League based on what we saw. Think about how much he struggled against backups. And again, I get it. He was playing with backups also. But the speed of the game only increases when they matter. Okay? So, again, I'm not in the head of Kevin Stefanski, and I don't know what he has against either quarterback, except I don't think either of them are going to lead you anywhere. But look, neither guy has a real future in my view. Okay? One at least has a little bit of a past. Deshaun Watson has playoff experience on his resume. He's actually put up some numbers. There was a time, long time ago, Jason, we thought Deshaun Watson was a rising star until he started to think he could run the Houston Texans organization. Remember that? His career's never been the same. But the curiosity, that factor has me thinking, I know I want to see Shedeur this fall, not Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see Shedeur because, there's clicks, traction. It's interesting. It's a fascinating story. It's connected to Deion Sanders. But I think you're right. Be careful what you wish for as it relates to Shedeur fans, because he is not ready. And he showed that during the preseason, and people can make every excuse they want to make for him. But he showed that everything that concerned people in college is actually true.
Well, I got something here, Jason.
Go ahead.
Let's say Arch Manning is who we think he is, or everyone's hoping. Let's say he actually is the real thing. Let's say he's playing so well that the Manning family says, you know what, we're going to break from family tradition. If you just want to have 1 year of being a starting quarterback, and all the mock drafts and the Mel Kipers of the world and the Todd McShays have you the presumptive number 1 pick. If you're the Browns and you're in contention, here's the thing. Maybe the time is right to bring Shedeur in, because Deshaun might actually mess around and win games. Dylan Gabriel's going to try his hardest. He might mess around and win a game. Now, if you put in Shedeur, Jason, look at my thinking here. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only are you satisfying the cult of Shedeur, you might lose a lot of games, and then you have the number 1 pick in the National Football League draft.
Shedeur Tank Sanders is what you're suggesting, and and I'm going to tell you why it makes a bit more sense than even I thought at the beginning, because I'm thinking like, hey man, the Mannings will not let their kid play for the Cleveland Browns. It will not happen. That does not mean, though, it's not worth tanking for Arch Manning, because you can trade that pick and acquire assets in return. And so tanking for Arch, even if you're the Cleveland Browns and the Mannings would never allow him to go to the Browns organization, you can still get value out of it. So, look, the way the Browns have set up their entire QB room, investing or going with a 40-year-old quarterback who hasn't played 16, 17 games, what did I say, since 2018, 2019, bringing in Shedeur to ensure chaos, trading Kenny Pickett, having an undersized Dylan Gabriel. They have created a recipe for disaster, and maybe that's what they're looking for. You know, let's get the number 1 pick, and if it's Arch Manning, we may have to trade him, but we can get a lot of value out of this.
Jason, let's look at the history. And by the way, the great words from, and I paraphrase George Allen, who once said, the future is now. For the Browns, the future is in the future. So let's go back to 2004, when the Manning family basically told the Spanos, now we're not doing this. But keep this in mind, there was a Phillip Rivers, and maybe the difference wasn't all that much, because that's who ended up being swapped out for, right? This year's NFL draft. So let's say this scenario takes place. Arch Manning becomes a Heisman Trophy contending type of guy. He's better than Quinn Ewers. He's as advertised. But you still have other quarterbacks that are highly regarded. There's Nussmeier at LSU, and there's Cade Klubnik at Clemson. Maybe Lenore Sellers morphs into Vince Young 2.0, but a better passer. And if those guys elevate into top 10 talents, and you're the Cleveland Browns, you have the number 1 pick, and Archie and everyone else says, we're still not doing it there in Cleveland. Well, if you're Cleveland, you say, okay, let's let history repeat itself. we're going to take Arch with the intention of getting those other 3 quarterbacks, but about 2 or 3 other first-round draft choices and a starting level player. It's been done before.
We'll end that conversation on that note and move to Mike Tannenbaum, ESPN former general manager, high-level executive in the NFL, now broadcaster for ESPN. He's really high on the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
Thinks that they're going to win the NFC. Thinks that the Eagles aren't really a threat. It's the Packers and the Buccaneers. Let's play the clip and we'll get your reaction.
So how many teams are you taking over Washington in the NFC?
The Packers and the Bucks, barely. Now, look, as it relates to Green Bay.
Whoa.
Packers?
No Eagles and Lions.
Stop. You mean that's it?
That's it.
The Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah,
No Philadelphia?
No. You just talk. Jaden Daniels is probably the best quarterback outside of Jordan Love in the NFC, and he had a whole offseason with Cliff Kingsbury. You add Deebo Samuel with the aforementioned Terry McLaurin. This is an offense that was already in the top 5.
They lost 55-23 in the NFC Championship game. Where the Eagles go?
Where they went, that was ancient history. Look at all the defensive players that Philadelphia has lost. They're going to have at least 4 or 5 new stars. And when we get to a week from Thursday night and you have to put a Dory Jackson out for Darius Slay, and you also lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
You're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles defense. I'm talking about Washington's defense. They give up 55 points.
Right. So they added Javon Kinlaw, Von Miller, who doesn't have a lot left, but maybe they'll get 15 snaps a game. And they also drafted Trey Amos. So to me, their defense will be at least middle of the road. They're going to be a top 5 offense. So I think they're going to beat Philadelphia and win the division.
So a middle of the road defense. You're going to put them above Philadelphia, the reigning, defending Super Bowl champions, who still got Saquon Barkley, who still, the A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, got underneath. You're an elite offensive line, if I remember correctly. You're still going to look at the Washington Commanders, and you don't even mention the Philadelphia Eagles. You mention the Detroit Lions and the Buccaneers. I'm sorry, the Packers.
He didn't mention the Lions.
Wait. If the 4 of us owned an NFL team, which, look, you're close to being able to do.
Adam's not so far behind.
No, he is not.
Way behind.
No, he is not.
And we did. Stephen A., who would you draft before Jaden Daniels? He may be the #1 player you would take to build a franchise around. And to me,
I'm not throwing any shade on him.
Right. So the definition of greatness is to make those around you better. And if we could score enough points to beat Philadelphia, that defense doesn't have to be elite.
I'm going to pass it to the great Adam Schefter by saying this. In the NFC Championship game, the shame of the Washington Commanders is that one could easily argue the only person who showed up was their rookie quarterback. Anybody else, a whole bunch of veterans didn't. And there are no questions about Jaden Daniels. We know who he is. We know what he brings to the table. Where's the help? And I'm not saying they don't have a good team. And I'm not saying they don't have a good coach. And I'm not saying Kingsbury didn't do a hell of a job as the offensive coordinator. What I'm saying is Philadelphia just gets open. Something wrong with you. Something wrong with you, Mike T.
Steve, I'm the one guy. Look, I like Jaden Daniels. I like what he showed, but I also believe in sophomore slumps.
Yes.
And I just think people are losing their minds on Jaden Daniels. I need to see more before I start putting him ahead of Jalen Hurts. And again, he may be a better quarterback, but in terms of winning and all that, I think the Commanders are overvalued here. Your reaction?
I believe it or not, I think Stephen A. Smith nailed it. Philadelphia is not going gently into the night. And Jason, isn't this indirect, or maybe it's direct disrespect of Jalen Hurts? Really, this is everyone's way of saying, we don't think he's that good. If any other quarterback that's considered elite would be coming off a Super Bowl victory where they dominated in the playoffs outside the Rams game, that was a tough one, but they rampaged through the postseason. Jalen Hurts fits that system perfectly. And yes, Howie Roseman made some decisions by letting go defensive parts probably a year early instead of a year late, okay? But offensively, all of the other pieces are in place. Jason, the downgrading of Philadelphia, I believe, is direct disrespect of Hurts.
I think you're right. And so now you're pushing me, Steve, to say something politically incorrect. But if Jalen Hurts had more tattoos, cornrows, talked a little bit more Ebonics, maybe was connected to some rapper or stripper turned rapper, there wouldn't be this kind of disrespect. There would be a veil of protection around him. He would be the first unapologetically black or the first authentic black quarterback, and no one would be able to give this kind of disrespect.
Also, you forgot to add, didn't know his father or had a father. That may be like the top of the list there. But you look at Philadelphia, Howie Roseman knows what he's doing. And yeah, they lost some key pieces up front defensively, right? But you still have an organization that knows what they're doing. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but to say that they are not a threat. Now, I agree with Tannenbaum. The Packers are a very young team with the young core. And if Jordan Love can stay healthy, I believe he's going to continue to ascend and be a perennial top 10 quarterback. And they got a new receiver out wide, Golden, to stretch the field. The Buccaneers are a team that I like. But Philadelphia, I don't believe they're going anywhere, Jason. They will be right in the thick of things come December.
Yeah, I'm not as high on the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield as everyone else. Obviously, let me just clarify and be I don't like short quarterbacks, and it takes a long time for me to get on board with a short quarterback, and I'm just not there yet with Baker Mayfield. That's it's just a total height bias that I have. So I think the Buccaneers are a tiny bit that pun is overvalued.
Yeah, you came up short again, Whitlock. Jeez.
I want to move on to a story we wanted to get into yesterday and just ran out of time, and I think it's a big one. Trey Hendrickson getting $30 million for one season. It's initially I was like, I don't know if I like this deal for Trey Hendrickson, but it makes sense for both sides. You got to give Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and those receivers a shot, that offensive shot. You got to have your best defensive player. Guy's got 35 sacks the last 2 years. My only problem is, though, the AFC is so stacked.
Yeah.
Is so stacked that even with this all-star roster, even with satisfying financially Burrow, Higgins, Chase, Hendrickson, when I look at the AFC and there's only 7 teams from each conference that can make it, I'm like, holy cow, where do I rank the Bengals? Even now everybody's financially satisfied. Where do you have the Bengals ranked in a hierarchy or a priority in the AFC?
Jason, I believe the top 3 is entrenched in any order. Buffalo, Baltimore, and the Chiefs. You can mix and match in any direction, any order. I would not argue. The Bengals, to me, probably right behind them. And Hendrickson's worth the money because, quite frankly, he is their pass rush. He's not their defensive line. He is their pass rush. Just look at their numbers. And last year, there was a particular pattern with Cincinnati, Jason. They lost a lot of one-possession games that were high scoring. Now, you can make the argument, well, okay, then is Hendrickson really worth that much? Really, you want to make a bad defense worse? Take away your whole pass rush. Take away your best player in the front 7. I think they needed to do this because, Jason, the Bengals have a historical reputation for being incredibly cheap. It's probably well-earned, right? But do you want to be the organization that squanders the prime of Joe Burrow?
You don't want to be, but I am amazed at your list, though, because they signed Hendrickson.
Right.
They signed Burrow. They give Jamar Chase what he wants. They go all, and those are like, Hendrickson's in the argument for best defensive end. Joe Burrow's in the argument for best quarterback. Jamar Chase is in the argument for best wide receiver. But you got him 7th, which I can't say it's crazy, but you got him 7th. As the 7th best team in the AFC. That's a lot of money to be 7th.
It is, but it's a very good conference. It really is, and when you lose a lot of one-possession games, it's never just about one thing. You know what it shows me, Jason? You got to play better complementary football. And when you lose that many in 1 year, there's a coaching issue. Like, did you go for it on 4th down one too many times? Should you have kicked it here? But there is a phrase in gambling that there is a shift, that when you win a lot of one-possession games, it goes the opposite way the next season. It also goes for a lot of teams that lose close games. I believe Cleveland was probably about, 20 points from being a 12, 13-win team, if you look at their scores. Now, I don't know. They drafted another defensive lineman, Shamar Stewart, who had some contract issues. He doesn't have a great history of sacking quarterbacks, but he's another live body up front. I believe this is not an indictment of me taking the Bengals 7th. What it really says is the AFC is stacked.
No, quick. Let's put up my list. I got the Bills number 1. I got the Ravens 2. I got the Chiefs 3rd. Denver Broncos. I'm buying the hype on Sean Payton. And for a lot of this, for me, I got the Bengals 5th. And I'm high on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Chargers are better than the Texans, but someone has to win the AFC South, and so it's going to be the Houston Texans. It's a bad division, and so but my seventh best team is the Chargers, but it's not just the talent in the AFC, it's also the coaching in the AFC. When John Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, those were 3 Super Bowl winners. Zach Taylor has coached in the Super Bowl with the Bengals. Obviously, Mike Tomlin has won a Super Bowl. I'm a little bit higher on the Bengals, I guess, than you. Their backs are against the wall. Everybody knows that, hey, look, Joe Burrow and these guys we got to do it this year because Trey Henderson's probably going to be out of here. And so that's why I'm a little bit higher and wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Bengals figure out a way to win the division. It's crazy because that's a really super competitive division. But, the AFC is wild, just how good it is and how much better it is than the NFC.
And Jason, you're forgetting the other Harbaugh who came within, 4 yards of winning a Super Bowl and a national championship. Made the playoffs last year with the Chargers. Now, the Rashawn Slater injury is a blow. Because if he would have been healthy, him and Alt would have been pillars at tackle. But they're going to grind people. They're going to ground and pound people. They're going to control the clock. And one of these years, Herbert is going to be a better 4-minute quarterback than he has been. He puts up great numbers for 58 minutes. It's those other 2 minutes in close games where he comes up a little bit short. But year 2 of Harbaugh, I'm a believer, and I've said this to you for 4 or 5 years. I know you're a Brady Hoke loyalist, but Jim Harbaugh is one of the 5 best coaches in football the last 15 years.
If you remove my Brady Hoke bias and the jokes I like to crack, I would agree with you as it relates to Jim Harbaugh. So I want to move on to one final thing, Steve. I think it was ESPN came out with their top 100 players, and there's a consensus there seems to be around the top 5 players among all the experts in the NFL. Did we put that list together? I would like to start there before Steve and I give our rankings. If we did not, I'll just move to me and Steve's top 5 because I think there's some agreement here. Everybody else is putting these quarterbacks at the top player in the NFL. And Saquon Barkley to me should have won MVP last year. And I know Josh Allen won it. I don't have a problem with Josh Allen winning it. I wouldn't have had a problem if Lamar had won it. Yeah. But Saquon Barkley was the best player in the NFL. And this running game and what the Philadelphia Eagles accomplished in winning the Super Bowl behind someone like Saquon Barkley, it speaks to they can do anything they want to do to devalue the running game and the running back position. It just doesn't work. There's still enough physicality left in the NFL that the running back is still a super valuable position. And maybe last year, and I'm suspecting again this year, the most valuable position. So my top 5 NFL players starts with Saquon Barkley. Then it's Josh Allen. Then hold on. I got confused because Myles Garrett. Then it's Lamar Jackson, and then I have T.J. Watt. And I don't have Patrick Mahomes in there because I think he can elevate and return to being what he was. But just based off last year, I just can't go into this season putting him in my top 5. He's got to re-earn it. That's not me being down on Patrick Mahomes. That's just me saying, look, what happened last year, I just can't chalk it all up. He didn't have help. He struggled last year. But anyway, Steve, your list of top 5 NFL players.
Real quickly, Jason, I don't have Mahomes in my top 5, but I'll make a statement right now. He'll have a renaissance year. It's going to look more like 2018, 19, and 20. Just watching them in preseason, and again, it's just August, they are starting to go vertical again. They got some young offensive linemen. It's going to look more like the Patrick Mahomes we all fell in love with. That looks like he's going to be one of the greatest ever. I think he's going to have a really big year. Number one, I think Barkley's the MVP. I think he's pound for pound number one. He made the greatest impact. And Jason, I believe these lists need to be basically separated into who is your favorite or best quarterback, who's your best real football player. I think there's an overvaluing of quarterbacks to a certain degree. Now, with that said, I do have Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Then I have Jefferson. Just the overall production. I know last year he had a hamstring issue, but that guy puts up monster numbers, can run every single route. Now, he may have a down year because I don't like that quarterback situation with that young rookie out of Michigan that's in his second year. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. And number 5, I have Myles Garrett, who unfortunately is in purgatory. And Jason, I chickened out. The more I think about it, and I think I did it because of the age, but the production is still there. Derrick Henry I keep thinking Derrick Henry deserves mention.
I love Derrick Henry. And I think last year, again, he's going to be really good. But last year was his last year of true greatness. Now, I may regret that comment, but eventually Father Time catches up with all these running backs. They take too many hits, and I know he's a freak of nature, the biggest freak of nature, I think, since Jim Brown. But I think last year is his last great season. I thought you were about to say, man, T.J. Watt got paid. T.J. Watt can put, the final. T.J. Watt has a chance to be a better player than his brother, which would be quite an accomplishment because T.J. Watt's already a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But, I think having just got paid, he's going to be trying to hunt down Myles Garrett, be Defensive Player of the Year, and put the final stamp of either I'm just as good as my brother or I'm better than my brother. This all-in mentality with Aaron Rodgers and everything, I think it's going to bring out the best in T.J. Watt. So that would be my wild card guy who I have at number 5. Steve, I think we're done here. Our work is done here. Good job. We'll see you tomorrow. I got to keep it moving because I got to talk about the WNBA. I got to get my WNBA fix in as the WNBA turns. Before I go, though, I want to remind you all the greatest thing you can do to support me is to go to fearlessmission.com and become a subscriber to everything we're doing here at Blaze TV. Fearlessmission.com right now. You want access to everything that I'm doing here at the Blaze. You want to be a true supporter of the Fearless Mission. You can go get my Pay Fans Respect t-shirts. And, I'm complaining while I got this one because I'll forget it when we get off air. T.J. Moe, how come they haven't sent me my Pay Fans Respect t-shirts? How come I don't have some that I should be wearing on this show? We need that taken care of today. I want you all to go get your Pay Fans Respect t-shirts. You can do it by going to fearlessmission.com. Become a supporter of me and what we're doing. It's important. If you want this kind of truth, if you want a voice for sports fans, if you want a voice for real people, if you want some of that old school honesty that journalism used to deliver, I need you to ante up and support us. Fearlessmission.com. Go get your Pay Fans Respect t-shirts. Fearlessmission.com. Become a subscriber to everything we're doing here at Blaze TV. When we come back, as the WNBA turns, next.
And so when I look up and see Nick Fuentes using tribalism to build an audience and influence and Louis Farrakhan-like tactics, and then he's mixing it with, hey, and I'm a Christian. I was like, oh, that sounds like Martin Luther King. Hey, I'm a Christian. I'm a heretic, but I'm a Christian. And I'm going to package everything along racial lines in a soft, warm and fuzzy kind of tribalism and build an audience when I'm really a plant leading people to Marxism, taking them away from their salvation. And I'm being propped up, pushed, marketed, manipulated, led by people that don't have the best motives or agendas. That's my sense of Nick Fuentes. He's like all of us, though. He has an opportunity to repent and go a different way.
As the WNBA turns, starring Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Asia Wilson. Brought to you by George Soros, Adam Silver, Kathy Engelbert, and the Global Elite.
All right, welcome back. My favorite part of the show, I hope it's yours as well. I got to talk a little WNBA. We're going to do it with Maurice from Keep the Vision and Frank, who I can't, for some reason, say the Pope. Oh, no, Maurice? Is it just, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I screwed up. It's just Frank. Frank, who's wearing a very special, what are you wearing? I need to get you a Pay Fans Respect T-shirt so you can wear that on the show instead. You're paying homage to Haktua Girl?
No. This is Donald Trump. Says hop to spit on you losers. Yeah, it's Donald Trump. Yeah, Trump coming to a hood near you for all you YNs out there. Yeah, that part.
Frank, what city are you in?
I'm in Tulsa. I'm from LA though, from Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, you're into. How does that T-shirt play in Tulsa?
Oh, I mean, don't nobody say nothing to me. I mean, this majority of Oklahoma is Trump supporters, I would say. The majority.
Gotcha. All right, so Frank, I want to start by talking about Caitlin Clark. And it feels more and more obvious that she's not going to play this season. I know that they said something. Didn't she participate in a walkthrough or something yesterday or the day before? But she needs to, I heard something about she needs to get in 5 practices before they feel like they're comfortable playing her. Anyway, if Caitlin Clark does not play this year again, and she only plays the 13, 14 games that I think 13 games she played this season, you want to talk about fumbling the ball. The WNBA has fumbled the ball. The Indiana Fever have fumbled the ball. Caitlin Clark has fumbled the ball. There's a lot of disappointment that I think a lot of fans will feel, a lot of content creators that, thought like, hey, man, we finna eat off of Caitlin Clark. And she took all the ingredients away. They took all the ingredients away. I think the level of disappointment will be palpable and will have impact in terms of next year. I don't know if the anticipation for next season will be as high.
Yeah, a little steam has went backwards a little bit. A lot of it. Yeah, this is disappointing. It disturbs my soul not to see her out there, and I have to watch this mess. It is a mess. Jason, did you see the game last night?
I watched it. They wanted a blowout. I was pleased. And Kelsey Mitchell had another good game. Aaliyah Boston. What do you mean? What was the problem with last night?
It looks so high schoolish, Jason. They running into each other. You remember I said they running into each other. I
did see that when Lexi Hole and I can't remember the girl on Seattle when they slammed head first into each other, and I was like, Lexi Hole is done. I was like, they done took out Lexi, they done took out Sophie, and now Caitlin Clark. And when she came back with a huge knot on her head, I can't believe this. Surely she had a concussion, but they were so desperate. They're like, no, we're running you back out there, baby girl. Put some ice on it and get out there. We're going old school. I kind of respected that.
Yeah, I call her Lexi Hall the Barbie dog. Because, boy, she can take a licking and keep on ticking like none other. I tell you, that girl she's something different. But just the overall game of play, it just looks bad, man. And it reminds, like when the women setting picks, they always do it with their hips. They turn their side a little bit. They never can set real screens. They get out of there before the player even make contact with them, or they make contact with the player, because they got breasts. And I understand that. It's just like, if you put my genitals on my chest, I'm not setting no picks neither. They shouldn't be playing no basketball. You can't set a proper pick. You can't play basketball.
I'm going to try to react to that and take it a tiny bit more serious, because this is the thing I've noticed about the WNBA. If someone sets a good screen on you, you've been trained to fall down. And once you fall down, they blow the whistle. And it's like, I look at it and like, no, that was just a good screen. And the girl got knocked on her butt, play on. But the WNBA, if a girl falls down, they're like, oh, got to blow a whistle. And I think that's part of the reason why these women fall down all the time. They know they're going to get a foul. But anyway, I'm going to leave it because I don't want you to do that genital analogy again.
Okay,
I'm going
all
to
right.
keep it moving. Lisa Leslie had something. Do we have audio of this, of Lisa Leslie having something to say about Caitlin Clark? Let's listen to Lisa Leslie here on Caitlin Clark.
It's mid-July, but perhaps could be nearing a return to help the playoff push. And she could provide quite a boost, Lisa.
She could provide an amazing boost, but again, I'm just going to put my coach's hat on, my GM hat on, you want to see Caitlin Clark for the longevity of her career? I'm just thinking, me personally, I would not put Caitlin Clark back on the floor this season. And the only reason why I say that is because I had the injury that she had. That deep groin injury is nothing to play around with. It can feel like you've never had it. You make one move, one cut, boom, she's back in the same spot. I don't know that it's worth risking it. If they get the 8th spot and you get into the playoffs, is it really worth looking at Minnesota round 1? I don't know. That's just my opinion. What you think?
Man, I mean, it would be lovely to get her back, but we care about Caitlin Clark playing basketball for a very, very, very long time. And so you don't want her to return unless she's 100% healthy. I'm thinking about more so from the player perspective of the pressure that Caitlin Clark is facing, getting back on the court. Her logo was just released a few days ago. I mean, obviously, we've seen the fans and the number of people in attendance for the Fever. And so it's been tough, I would imagine, mentally for her to have sat out this many games her second season. I'm wondering if that pressure is starting to get to her a little bit about just returning this season and showing us that you can play basketball again.
I agree with the young lady as it relates to if it was anybody but the Minnesota Lynx. I would not send Caitlin Clark running back out there against the stud buds, them two, or Dejanay Carrington. I would not let those 3 girls attack Caitlin Clark in the playoffs, with Caitlin Clark having not played for 2 months. I think that would be a mistake and an embarrassment for Caitlin Clark and the Fever.
Caitlin Clark so above skill level when it comes to these players in the WNBA. I think she'll be ready to torch their butts too. You throw her right back in. As long as she's 100% healthy, the stud buds, they don't have a chance of doing nothing with Caitlin Clark. She would clown them, make them look silly. Dejanay Spicy Mustard Kruger Carrington, you know, she will be probably a little more behaved under Cheryl Reeves and playing for a championship team in Minnesota Lynx. And this is my belief. Maybe not. But Caitlin don't fear none of that stuff. So, and when it comes to pressure, we've seen what she's been handling that so swell forever now. Since we've been watching her junior year in college, senior, going into the WNBA, she's been having the whole WNBA on her shoulders and carrying them, and a lot of them hating on her and doing all that. And she's done it with a smile on her face. So, if she's able to go, you definitely let her go, because you could upset the Minnesota Lynx with Caitlin Clark on the floor.
Potentially, I wouldn't take the risk. Dejanay Carrington would try to kill her. You think Joy Taylor don't like me? Dejanay Carrington really don't like Caitlin Clark. Finally, I want to play you Lauren Jackson, former WNBA player, very, very good former WNBA player. She's kind of flip-flopped on whether or not she would have liked to have played with Caitlin Clark. At one point, you know, she talked about how great Caitlin was and, you know, how she'd love to play with her. And then she gets on with Sue Bird and kind of makes a comment about, like, I'm not sure if Caitlin Clark would pass the ball Let's play this latest clip from Lauren Jackson, and we'll get your reaction.
Today that you look at and think like, oh, I wish I could play with her?
I love Caitlin Clark. I've said that before, but I do love her, but it was taken out of context. I've always said that Sue is the one that, like, you are the, but no.
I don't
Like, no. I have to,
I
like,
saw it. Babe, take it.
No. You are the best point guard I've ever played with, but you are completely different players to her. Like, and also too, she's got a lot of development and growth to come, but I feel like you are the consummate professional. But I think the way that you are able to bring a team together and make a team hum, yeah, like you're the player that I actually got to play with, and I would wish I could play with.
I knew exactly what you meant.
Yeah, no, I know
when you
did
did that video. I knew exactly what was happening.
So I'll say that I love watching her. I'm not sure I would have loved playing with her though. Like, I'm not sure, because I'd be like, pass me the ball. I'm open. Give me the ball.
Bring
but
it down
she's
here.
a very good.
It's like I average like 5 assists. She averages like 8. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like she'd take a 3 instead of passing it to me, and I'd be like, no, mate, that's not gonna work.
It's a pick and pop. I've heard that. It's
before.
a big pop. Nah, mate.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work.
Frank, I love Caitlin Clark, but I think Lauren Jackson is actually saying something that other players actually think and believe, that she's great, but she jacks up these logo threes early in the shot clock. I done run down court for no reason. She doesn't give the offense a chance. She takes bad shots. And then the other little subtle dig, she's just, when she's saying, Sue, you were the ultimate professional, she's saying that Caitlin Clark, all the flopping that she does and all the bickering she does with the referees is unprofessional and a distraction, and it's too much. I know I'm going to get killed for having any criticism of Caitlin Clark, but those are the facts. And so Lauren Jackson, I don't think that's hate. I just think that's her keeping it real. I do think there are some players that look out there and say, man, all that wasted energy, bickering with the refs and all the flopping and extra emotion, and some of these threes just shouldn't be taken. Your reaction?
She's clearly lying, because what we didn't play was when she said, oh, she's so amazing. Oh, her vision, her smarts. Let me do her smarts is what, right? She talked about her smarts, Jason. And then you go 2 days later and get in front of Sue Bird and say, well, wait a minute. So she's lying. She's been disingenuous. She was being genuine on the first podcast she was on, speaking about Caitlin Clark. And you can tell, if you had that clip, you can tell in her face, in her body language, that she believed everything she was saying when she was praising Caitlin Clark, saying she would want to play with her and those type of things. So I think she's pandering, just like Gino did. Gino did similar thing. He came out and said how she was being targeted. It seemed like that Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird didn't have to face this. And then 3 hours later, he went on Dan Patrick's show and he destroyed her, right? And so to me, it seems like either people get called up, because like I said, I believe she's being sabotaged from the top. And when those type of figures, predominant figures like a Gino, or I don't know who that lady is, I've never heard of her, but she's supposed to be some legend, I guess. And ladies, listen, WNBA, if we wasn't watching, you're not legendary. You sound like Shedeur Sanders. Stop it. You're not legendary. We don't know you, okay? We don't know who you are, lady, okay? But you said what you said, and Gino said what he said, and they took it back. To me, that sounds like you got a phone call and said you need to retract what you said, because that's a little too much. It just looks like another case of sabotaging Caitlin Clark.
Frank, I'm going to call you the Tulsa King. Thank you so much. Great job as always. We'll see you next time. Thank you all for watching today's episode of Fearless. Give us about 45 minutes at 12:15 Central Time. 12:15 Central Time, 1:15 Eastern Time. Myself, Dave Shannon, Walker will be on the Harmony Channel talking about Black identity. Can it survive a Christian identity? We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all this moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on the corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want